Hello, you're welcome yet again to your program NTA2 Business Matters, where we discuss everything business. Please stay tuned after the short break. Anyway, on Business Matters, we're going to be looking at a topic that is of a dear one to my heart, and that is unlocking Africa's productivity through financial technology, a diaspora perspective. Let us have a business update. Well, here at our professional segment, we are going to be having a distinguished guest in the studio today, joining us to explore the topic unlocking Africa's productivity through financial technology, a diaspora perspective. This is an individual who is an internationally recognized technologist, aerospace engineer, and financial technology expert with over 25 years of experience working at the forefront of innovation. His career spans pivotal roles in the United States defense and aerospace industries, with contributions to projects involving NASA, Boeing, the United States Air Force, and other cutting edge financial systems, especially at MasterCard. He is the founder and chief architect of the ToroNet blockchain, a layer 1 protocol with an integrated dollar backed stablecoin at its core, designed to drive financial inclusion and unlock digital economies, particularly across Africa. He is also a member of the Club of Rome, where he serves on the African Working Group alongside distinguished thinkers. This gentleman has consulted for Nigerian institutions, including the National Insurance Commission (NICOM), and is currently leading efforts to channel diaspora technology, expertise, and capital back into Nigeria's innovation ecosystem. Please join me as I make welcome Dr. Ken Alabi. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Great. You know, I was so excited when I was told I was going to be having you because from the diaspora, we know so much in terms of innovation is happening. And Nigeria, as it is, we are at a crossroad where we need all the kinds of expertise, all the kinds of technology that we can bring home to help us drive our economic agenda. And I know that being a founder of ToroNet, you've done so much in this space. But reading your profile, we understand that you had a background that spans several industries, especially with NASA, Boeing, United States Air Force. Could you give us an insight of some of the learned lessons when you were there?
Right. So I initially, when I got a doctorate from the United States, Stony Brook, I studied in an area called computational fintech, computational, finance. And in that process, following those numeric simulations and a lot of those esoteric studies, the only place where I could be gainfully employed was in the area of defense.
Oh,
Right.
fantastic.
My doctorate project was on the aircraft wings, right, and bodies like that move in air, right. So it literally was rocket science, the way it's said, really. And so I worked in a defense contracting firm, had projects. I was a principal investigator on several
Oh, that's
defense
great.
projects.
That's great.
With, covering a lot of really high technology,
Sure.
magnetohydrodynamics, combustion, and a lot of those technologies. After a few years, following when there was sequester in the United States, and there was like a funding drop sometime in the 2000s, um, I pivoted into the fintech space, and I
Fintech
joined a
space itself.
startup which later got acquired by Mastercard,
Oh, fantastic.
and so that's how I got into the fintech space. Basically, one thing that I see is that a lot of us in the diaspora, a lot of people in the diaspora, very brilliant Nigerians and Africans, we sometimes make a lot of contributions, would make some of these things happen. And there is a space for us to bring some of that knowledge back
True, true.
to incentivize and even spur and create the similar structures that results in growth. And that's one of the things that I'm looking to do with some of what we've done at Toronet and with some of what we've done at NICOM. And actually, I've worked in a few areas in Nigeria, including at Noun. So I've had projects that some of them World Bank funded,
Oh, great.
and some of them funded by those institutions, and some of them which we just really do to give back to the
That's
communities that
interesting.
we
Now,
come
you
from.
mentioned fintech, and we're looking at financial inclusion. In this part of the world, I think our regulators have actually seen that the financial infrastructure, as a matter of fact, can help catalyze a lot in terms of economic shifts. And financial inclusion itself is not just obviously limited to just the financial space, which have some of the impact things that we're going to be looking at, as a matter of fact. Could you throw more light with your understanding of financial inclusion and what
Right,
direction we should be looking at,
right,
especially when it has to do with innovation, incentives, as well as impact?
right. So there are two parts to financial inclusion, really. The part which most people talk about is access to payment systems.
True.
That's one part, and that is a foundational part. But there's also the access to financial structures that incentivize and create growth. I'll give the example of my own father. He was, in the civil service, worked for about 40 years. And I watched as I grew up how he would, every month take his take-home pay, and he built the house that we lived in. Took him about 18 years,
Wow.
right? Obviously,
Oh, that was a man with integrity, obviously. I mean,
right, right,
for you to have taken it 18 years to build your house, it meant that
right.
you got what you had, you invested in that, and over the time, the house actually came to fruition.
Right, but the key thing is he became an own homeowner, and he had a few years to
Oh
enjoy that
my,
home ownership.
oh my.
On the other hand, when I finished my doctorate program, got a job, I immediately just approached the financial institutions there, and I got a mortgage, and I became a homeowner. There and then, so I have potentially more years to enjoy it.
True,
That's
true.
because structures have now existed, have been put in place in those countries where they're able to recognize and de-risk the process of mortgages or access to financial systems, and be able to do such creative things as pull future earnings, backwards, to enable people to enjoy the benefits of those future earnings.
Oh, that's
And in
great.
addition, those financial institutions are able to also monetize and make some gains from that. There is no reason why we can't have some of those structures. I taught for a little bit after my doctorate at Stony
Oh,
Brook,
that's great.
and I'll see young people,
That's great.
right? And some of them will have ideas that can result in growth and development. They'll access the small business administration in the school. Most of the universities in the United States, they have an SBA department
True,
where you go
true,
in there.
true,
They even
true.
teach you how to write the proposals, right? So that's another method of financial inclusion. So there is payment systems and there's access to financial systems, and both of those things still have some ways to go here, but they're very achievable very quickly. And
Quickly.
some of those things we can learn from them.
Okay, well, if you look at financial inclusion, how does that actually impact on the rural areas? Because a lot of times people imagine that financial inclusion, like you've rightly said, also must include those who are underbanked or unbanked, and you're pulling them into the formal financial system. Now we are going to the point where from next year, the country will begin to expand its tax net. And
Right,
then, of course, some people are going to benefit from that. Why
right,
those who earn as much as they earn are obviously going to be taxed
right,
appropriately.
right,
And so we look at the urban, that's more of the urban setting, but you look
right,
at the rural setting.
right.
How well do you think financial inclusion with innovations like yours can help drive that agenda?
Right. So one of the reasons why the financial inclusion access to payment systems has been challenging for the traditional financial system is the traditional financial system is too bulky.
Okay,
If a bank needs to create a branch in the old system, immediately they create that branch, there's a lot of overheads,
true.
right? They have to staff it, right? So the cost per transaction in the old financial system is really high. And when you have the rural communities where it's sparsely populated, it's the cost, it's not cost effective to do that.
That's true.
So they give up on those because they're there to generate profits for their shareholders. And the government is not going to go into basically setting up access to payment systems. Now we're having for the first time, technology that enables one to reach those people without having to put in place the
All of those
buildings
brick and
and all
mortars and those
those and
structures.
intermediaries
Okay.
too. That's why when people say things like some of the new products we're seeing, and you talk about digital currencies, and and people say things like, "Oh, you don't need third-party intermediators." The part that's missing is not just the sovereignty that it gives to those individuals that they control access to their own resources,
Resources,
but it
true.
also is that the cost of providing of accessing those services. I wouldn't say providing those services because nobody's providing those services now. It's now self-service, but the cost is now less
Less.
because there are no intermediaries that you have to pay
That's
to
true.
have
That's
those kind
true.
of accesses.
Whether obviously blockchain technology obviously comes to play in this role in terms of how it can help leapfrog, especially in terms of advancement and economic shift for the benefit of the population. As a matter of fact,
Right. So people have associated blockchains, even in developed countries, with all kinds of, yeah, speculative products, airdrops, and meme coins.
true,
Yeah, right. But there is so much benefit in the technology when you really apply it to things that matter,
true,
right? The disintermediation, which I talked about, right?
true.
That's one feature, a technological feature of blockchains. The fact that it's immutable, right? And that sovereignty that it gives, that nobody except you, the primary owner of an asset, can actually move those assets. Now, I'll give an example of why the immutability, which is a part that most people don't talk about, is very important. I call immutability a corruption killer because if
Yeah,
you and I
that's
have an
true.
agreement and we have a code
That we're all
basically,
subscribed to,
yeah,
basically in
a
that
code we
regard.
both
Yeah,
subscribe
so
to, and
true.
that is underwritten by the entire world, so that you and I mean, there's so many people like maintaining
Yes,
those ledgers and that data that you and I cannot go to all of them and say, "Oh,
it's
I
not
don't like
possible.
this deal I
Yes,
did with Steve. Can you help me change it?"
yeah,
Those are not possible. There's no other system prior to that has that feature. Like even if it's a country that's guaranteeing this agreement, you're still at the mercy of whoever is in charge of those countries. We saw recently where countries that used to provide certain services and they said, "Oh, we don't give AIDS anymore," and they canceled it. And people that had been depending on that,
yeah.
they're no longer able to depend on it. When you have other people, when you have intermediaries guarantee agreements, that's why you have things that are not immutable. So that is why I call blockchain is a kind of like it's a corruption killer because
Great.
you can't make changes to what people agree, and when those records are there, you can't make changes to those
Absolutely.
records.
But where does the role of regulators come in, especially with risk management in all of this conversation?
And now that is the part that's recently catching up to what is happening. The regulators is very important in this de-risking process. Let's take a leaf from what we just saw from the United States with the Genius Act. What they did there was basically say, okay, we're going to bring all of this stuff and make sure that there's some guarantees in place. So if someone says, look, I have these digital currencies and I'm representing that this is what the value is, we're going to have this regulation that says if you are saying that under this authority is how that stablecoin is issued, you need to have audits in place, you need to have the backings in place, and these are the ways
True.
you're going to do that. Obviously, they built in the advantages for the system there, including that, yeah, you can back it with US treasuries. So now we come back to a de facto US dollar system because now the US dollars and the treasuries become
Yeah, but
on
most
the
of this
backing.
innovation actually emanated from what you want to call Silicon Valley, from US thinking hubs and the rest of them. So perhaps they obviously saw that in good time and wanted to leverage on that.
Quickly leverage on that,
and
right?
leverage on that.
But we can borrow from that
True.
because if we also accelerate some of the regulations that we have, we've seen already what works. We see where we're trying to go to. We can leverage on that and create an environment that's going to spur growth and development rapidly. And we have examples in the past where we've harnessed technology very quickly and caught up and even exceeded some parts of the Western
Now,
world.
I'm going to pause you on that, and we are going to go on a short break. Please, viewers, stay with us. As soon as we're back, this conversation is getting more interesting. We're going to explore some other aspects that has to do with models as soon as we're back after this short break. Thank you. If you've just joined us, this is Business Matters. My name is Stephen Ipalabo Lawson, and I'm in the studio with Dr. Ken Alabi, who is the founder of ToroNet blockchain. As a matter of fact, we've been looking at the topic unlocking Africa's productivity through financial technology, a diaspora perspective. And before we went on that short break, Dr. Alabi, we were trying to look at what are some of the guarantees, quote unquote, if you might, if I might want to use that word, or perhaps models that we can actually say, okay, for us here in Nigeria, these are models that we can depend on to see that a lot of this innovation coming in can actually stand a great opportunity of being successful, so that we can look back and realize that in the next 5, 10, 20 years, this is how we can be able to measure the progress we've had, and the impact obviously on the people itself can be fully identified.
Right.
What do you think you can hold on to as models, as a matter of fact?
Right. So I always give the example that you say technology is an opportunity for us to leapfrog the time it takes to get development and growth. I have watched in the past 30, 40 years how China has gone from there were areas in China that are just like many of our communities, rural, 30, 40 years ago, that have leapfrogged, and they've kind of gone ahead of some of the communities in the Western world. We can do some of that as well. We've
Sure.
seen what we've been able to accomplish when we unleash the power of technology in telecoms, right? Once the regulations were in place, in terms of growth and development, we've reached inclusion to the point where in the rural areas
That's true.
you have
That's true.
so much coverage. The
That's
farmer
true.
has a phone,
True.
right? And
That actually even aids in terms of agricultural produce and how they're
right,
able to
right.
get their compensation on spot. That's good.
Absolutely,
That's a good
absolutely.
story.
So, and I'm beginning to see the same strands begin to be in place in the fintech space. There are some aspects of our fintech area that is actually kind of ahead and catching up to what exists in in some of the Western communities. Obviously, in terms of structures, we have a lot of work to do. Like I said, young people, entrepreneurs getting access to finance when their ideas are solid. People will have jobs, getting access to finance when their jobs are stable. Those are aspects that are still behind. Access to the payment systems is still kind of very, very much behind. One of the things with Toronet, and I'll say this, like, look, I'm part of the Toronet Association, is a non-profit association that manages that blockchain.
Oh,
All
great.
right. And one of the projects that's built on that blockchain is one called Agrify. And we had a project with USAID where they basically vet the farmers, and they provide the finance to the farmers. But that was 2023,
Okay.
and it was successful. That was in Benue State. And after that, we had now the same similar Agrify working with the Katsina State government. But here, the model is different. They just basically said, look, we want to provide inputs to farmers. And this is something every country does, because if farmers are not supported and other countries support their farmers, the farmers in one's country would have an output at a price point that's higher,
Yeah.
and then you lose them because
Lose
they now
them, yeah.
you have rural urban migration because they can't make a living because their produce is too high. So what Katsina State does is they provide the fertilizers to farmers, but they want to do it by providing it at half the cost, and the government covers half of the cost. Now you have the issue, like, how do you make sure that farmers are the ones getting
Getting the
this input?
fertilizers.
So they discussed with the Toronet Agrify project, and so when the farmer just pays the half, you see it on chain. The farmer has their address, right? You capture the GPS location of their farms. They have all the history, and the government has
It's
the
practical.
regulation system. And so you can actually see down, even like if there was a map, you'll see the locations of all the farmers. You have all their names and all their attributes, and you see who's paid, and you see that the fertilizers has been disbursed to them. So that is another model. Now we have also something with University of Abuja, which is Agrify is going to be a part of. So here, several things has been accomplished. Access to payment
Payment
systems, the
systems,
farmers
yeah,
can
of
pay.
course, yes.
Access to
To
finance,
true.
finance as well, because these are
Advantage.
farmers where you have their land, you have the GPS, you have their history, and so you know that they're going to produce. So those are parts of, that's an example of one project. that leverages a blockchain
Okay.
to gain access to financial
All right,
systems.
finally, the diaspora space is coming into the country. I mean, I think we need as much as we can get. As a matter of fact, what should we be looking towards?
Right. So I have a lot of conversations with several people in diaspora, a lot of very intelligent, very smart people, very accomplished people. And one of the trends, I mean, that we see is many of those people do also want to lift up and bring some of what they've learned, bring some of their technologies, and use it to enhance and better communities that they came from. The one thing that has been difficult to make that accomplished is that we see, right, nobody wants to waste their time and their
True.
efforts. If the structures are not in place that makes you see that there's success, it's very hard to come back and just dump resources in here, and and then you don't get the result. But now we start to see some of the things in place. Our the exchange rates is recently become a lot more stable.
True.
The parallel rates is gone, because that parallel rate is like a penalty that just goes on investment right away. Because if you invest, if you want to take it out, you're taking it out at official rate, right?
And then,
And so that's like an immediate penalty. And the other thing is that stability is important, because if you, I mean, invest in the country, and it takes 6 months or 1 year, by that time the exchange rate would have dropped like 30%, and you actually are already in a loss,
also
even though
very,
you
yeah,
actually
that's
did
true.
something sound. So that's why those things are important. Obviously, there are other things that you need. You want to have power so
Okay.
that businesses can, can innovate and grow. You want to have security. But as we start to see some of those things in place, we are indeed making a concerted effort to have, I mean, people in the diaspora, including myself and a lot of people that I know, come back with some of those
Yeah,
technologies
this is home
and
for you, as a
engage.
matter of fact. You
It
want
is,
to be able to have the
right,
African story being told that
right,
by Africans, and how
exactly,
well, especially in Nigeria, taking the lead, and how well they have been able to do to be able to get the people out of poverty. And
exactly,
so our stories will no longer have to be one of negative tales, but more of positive. And it's about collaboration and partnership that helps to drive this vehicle.
right.
All right. I
Yes,
want to say a big thank you, Dr. Ken Alabi,
yes.
Toronet. This has been amazing exploring unlocking Africa's productivity through financial technology, a diaspora perspective. We hope perhaps in the future, if we have other opportunities to have you come share with us some of
Right.
these innovations and some of the success stories that we've actually had over the
Right.
years.
I'll come report back as some of those projects, Agrify, Grovas, which actually provides financing for solar
Oh,
panels,
great.
doing really great,
Oh, great.
right? There's a project right now for waste, I mean, monetizing waste,
Monetize
because a
waste.
lot
Okay.
of plastic waste, there's
From waste to
actually,
wealth. I mean,
right,
that makes a whole lot of sense.
right, recovery. So there's a lot of projects. So we provide a platform for all of those projects to come in and be able to build and thrive. And so maybe the next time we speak, we'll have a lot more
Should
success
I put you on the
stories.
spot to ask when exactly? I mean, I'm excited about the possibility. The potentials are huge. They're humongous. So are we going to be saying 3 months from now, 1 year from now, or thereabout?
Definitely in 2026. I will
Okay.
commit to that.
Thank you so very much, Dr.
It's
Ken
been a
Alabi.
pleasure.
It's been a wonderful pleasure. Viewers, this is so much we can take. Please stay tuned after this short break. Business Matters continues. Viewers, you've heard it from our guest, Dr. Ken Alabi of Toronet and Blockchain. It's important for us to be able to leverage on the technology that the world has given to us, whether it's blockchain or AI or digital platforms, as the case might be, so that we can leapfrog our economic advancement for the benefit of the people. Impact is not just about buzzwords. It's about results that are measurable. And if you have the technology right and you have the structure and systems in place, we can only tell about great news. And so on that note, we'll say that this is so much we can bring to you on Business Matters. Please keep a date with us every other week, because Business Matters is where truly all the businesses that matters happens. My name remains Stephen Ipadabo Lawson. Until I come your way again, bye bye for now.